my name is Paddy O'Boyle. Lorraine was talking about her centre, so I'm almost a level above that. I work in the tech transfer office in Dublin City University. Amber is one of the centres we work with, but there are other ones. And I'm a late replacement for Richard Stokes, who may be in the brochure. So I just want to give you an overview of Invent and the kinds of things we do. I suppose I put a set of slides together late last night, and I was trying to think, there's a lot of competition for presentations, so I need to have a few punchlines. So I was thinking, what's the sole purpose of my presentation? And even that turn of phrase sort of reminded me of a card that I got from a friend, and it was a bit cruel but very funny. I thought, it was maybe the sole purpose, Paddy, of your life is to serve as a warning to others. So maybe that's an argument for not putting slides together late at night. But the sole purpose of my presentation, Lorraine went into a lot of discussion about Amber, and it's very good. I could do the same around a number of centres, but I was going to try and build the justification for you. I'm assuming you guys are sort of small and medium-sized enterprises. Why would you want to work with a university? So the sole purpose of this presentation is to say, if you're a technology company in Ireland, and you should consider working with the university and taking advantage of some of the key, what we call it, subsidies and benefits and money that's available. I'm constantly surprised with the number of companies that don't know what's going on in universities like DCU and the kinds of incentives that they can actually do. So why work with a university? I've told this story before, but I borrowed it from, let's say, a good friend of mine. I was in a presentation with Craig Barrett, who was the CEO of Intel, the ex-CEO of Intel, and he was trying to make the case for companies in general to not be too central or too focused on their own stuff and to actually look outside, sort of the open innovation model. And he was asking the audience, it was a small audience, tell him a good company, a good technology company. And they went through the usual suspects, but the one that he zoomed in on was Microsoft. And then he asked the question of, well, how much money does Microsoft spend on R&D? And I went away and did the statistics, and this is dated now, but in 2011, they had 70 billion euros or dollars in revenue, and they spend 9 billion. So that's one of the smartest technology companies by anybody's measure, hiring the best people, spending heaps of money to actually go and do good technology. And then his next question was, well, what are the biggest things that impacted Microsoft over the last 10, 15 or 20 years? And after a bit of discussion, the following came up. The Mosaic browser, which was 1992, that was the start of the internet browsing as a phenomenon, and Microsoft got sort of caught flat-footed on that. Then there was the Linux operating system that really gave their Windows and their Windows NT operating system a hard time, and that was 1996. The Google search engine, which is 1998, was another big impact on Microsoft. And then Facebook, which is 2004, for Facebook reads social media. So those are huge movements that had a direct impact on Microsoft's business. And then I think the key point, and I'll amplify it here, is Mosaic came from the University of Illinois. Linus Torvalds was in the University of Helsinki when he came up with the Linux operating system. Google, which most people know, is from Stanford. And then Facebook, I'm using a little bit of artistic license, but it was on the campus of Harvard. So again, his point was, look outside your organization, and this is a good example of blockbuster technologies coming from universities. Now I'd like to build on that point. I'm not going to claim we have the next Google or the next Facebook coming out of DCU, but what I want to emphasize is that DCU works with these big companies. Now it's not looking for blockbuster technologies, a lot of it's actually incremental stuff, so we're actually, without going into any confidential information, but we're working with, as an example, Microsoft around machine translation of their material from one language to another. We're working with Intel, they have a big manufacturing site, and in fact we're working with Intel, it's publicly known, on Smart Stadium initiative here in Croke Park. So Lorraine touched on it, the open innovation model. When I was working in industry, we had this beautiful curve that came from lots of ideas to less ideas to actual products. Now you see a whole disorder where they're looking for ideas from third parties outside the company. You're spinning out companies, you're licensing orphan technologies. But what I suppose the key message of this presentation is, this is not just the domain of the big companies. Ireland's very progressive in supporting SMEs and allowing them to actually work with universities. This isn't very clear. I took it from the KTI, the Knowledge Transfer Ireland report, and there's 1,371 companies working with universities in Ireland. loads of those. Probably the majority of those are small and medium-sized enterprises. So if you're a small and medium-sized enterprise and you haven't done this, it's well worth considering. I put 3 logos along the bottom, which is just 3 companies that I've met with in the last month, and I think they're sort of symptomatic of the kinds of stuff that they are doing that we all should be doing. CBE are a point-of-sale company who are out in Mayo. A lot of the cash tills and stuff you'd see in Tesco's and other supermarkets are CBE. Cavmite are a very impressive company in Cavan who do cable enclosing for the oil industry. And then I met with Prior PLM Medical yesterday, and they do really cool stuff around inhalers and other medical devices. So again, I'm putting these up because I'm saying all I've had so far is discussions with them. We haven't agreed to do any deals, but I'm quite happy if a company comes to me, finds out the mechanisms that are available, finds out the funding that's actually available and the smart stuff that's in DCU, and decide not to do anything. At least they're making an informed decision. But more and more companies, small companies, should be aware of stuff that's going on in DCU, in other universities throughout Ireland, and actually understand some of the mechanisms. 2 key points. So I happen to be the ICT person, sort of the software guy or engineering guy in DCU. So if you were to come to me, for me, read somebody in Galway, somebody in Trinity, somebody in Cork, there'll be an equivalent of me. So I took the DCU portfolio. If you go to the website, it's hard to actually understand what's going on, and I abstracted out what I think are 9 key areas that I think we're very strong at. So Lorraine had done a good job of saying what Amber's actually good at. Here's what I think DCU's strengths are. So almost every company I talk to, I can actually map into one of these areas, right? So without going through them in any great detail, what I would say is, if you have a data analytics problem, which I think every company in the world probably has, we have a number of smart professors and smart researchers that actually help you with your business. So whatever area you're in, I think we can actually do a good mapping of you into the right professor or the right research group to have a meaningful conversation. So if I've sort of partially convinced you that, hey, working with universities is a good idea, and DCU as an example might have some technologies, well then what are the funding mechanisms that you can actually use? This is not a comprehensive list. You can go on websites and stuff and find out more, but here's probably the 3 best examples I can think of, and they're going from top to bottom, is small to large. So you can sponsor, as a small and medium-sized business, you can sponsor a PhD student. That's a 3 or 4 year program. They normally cost 24k, and the actual DCU or the state or IRC, the Irish Research Council, pay 16k of the 24k annual cost. At the bottom is a Horizon 2020, which is slightly more formal and more structured. So as a small company, you should know what kind of initiatives are going on there. You could be part of a consortium, which DCU could be part of. You bid in with a number of other companies and other universities. A big lump of money comes to you for multiple years. So there could be, some of these projects are in 5 and 10 million category, and if you were a member of that, you could actually parse off hundreds of thousands, maybe up to $1 million of funding for your company. So well worth considering and finding out more about. For me, the sweet spot is actually what we call collaborative research projects, and it's sponsored by both Enterprise Ireland and Science Foundation Ireland. And the model is very simple. You come and say, you come to talk to someone like me, we map you to a researcher who's interested in actually solving your problem, and then Enterprise Ireland or Science Foundation Ireland will provide a significant amount of the funding for you actually to go and do the project. That's the model. So it's based on the premise that the company knows the market inside out and back to front and sees where the opportunity is. They want to come to the university very clearly for some intellectual horsepower, from smart people to actually solve the problem they have, and then the funding support comes from Enterprise Ireland and Science Foundation Ireland. The funders are actually very good. They're very generous in what they do, and they're also a little bit hands-off. So they leave it to the company to know the market, and they leave it to the universities to actually be able to solve the problems. The one that I focus on and I'm a champion of, I think this works really well, is the Innovation Partnership Programme from Enterprise Ireland. I just cut and pasted their brochure. That's a really slick program, easy to apply, not easy to apply for, but a fairly straightforward process of application once you've decided that's the route you want to go. I don't want to belabor it, but the funding mechanism is, for Enterprise Ireland, it's 80-20. The funding can go for anything from 50% to 80%. It sort of depends on a number of factors, but it's very generous funding. I just used one case study, which is a project for €100,000 would get you 2 smart researchers, maybe a postdoc and a research assistant, or 2 postdocs for a year to work on your project, and you pay 20k and the state pays 80k. Again, very generous funding. And the process, I don't want to go into detail, but literally, there's a perception that universities are very slow moving, and Enterprise Ireland and other government agencies are very slow moving. That is absolutely not the case. This is a fairly slick application process. You come in with the problem. The university does most of the lifting, on the heavy lifting on the actual application process, and you can move as quickly as you want to. I've seen innovation partnerships that DCU have been involved in that have been, from the initial discussion to actually doing the project, could be as short as 3 months. Other times it takes longer simply because the company isn't sure what they want to do, or we have to map it into the right group and it takes a little while, or we have to hire the people. But there's nothing bureaucratic about the process whatsoever. I'll finish just with 2 case studies just to illustrate, because I think like Lorraine's presentation in Amber, a case study I think is highly illustrative. This is probably my favourite project of all the ones I've done over the last few years. This is a guy, an entrepreneur, Sean Breen, who was in the plant hire business, had never dealt with a university ever before, had no reason ever to deal with the university, and he had, on reflection now, had the courage to come up to DCU and say, hey, I've got a really good idea for an electric dumper, or he thought he had a good idea. It was his hypothesis. He couldn't build it on his own. So what that is it's a dumper at the front. It can raise up and sort of tip out. It holds 1 ton's worth of material, of whatever it is, be it soil or other things, and then the person sits at the back and it's all electric. So all of a sudden, you can go into areas where a normal combustion engine wouldn't be able to go. So in hospitals or in big manufacturing plants like Intel, like Leak-Slip, or confined areas. So that was his hypothesis. He didn't have a design for it, he just had it in his head. He did a bit of test marketing, and he came to the university, the School of Mechanical and Manufacturing Engineering, and we actually built the system for him, with huge input from him as well, because he knew the market inside out and back to front, and we just actually put some of the smart manufacturing and the smart mechanical components together. And also what's quite interesting on this case study is, even though it was built of off-the-shelf components, it's quite amazing, there was no other vehicle like this, and even though we built it from different parts, in the process to protect him, I decided to talk to a patent attorney about registering designs, and in the process of having that discussion, we actually filed a patent. So believe it or not, you can actually file a patent when you assemble standard components in a unique way. The concern that we had on this was that Sean was then going to actually build one of these and then another one. So what I can tell you is in the last year he's made huge progress. He's back from a big trade show in America. He's got a big order book of over 50, and he's going to another big trade show in Germany, and I think his order book will double again. So again, a very good illustration of a guy like yourselves who's got an idea, who doesn't have that either wherewithal or the resources inside the company, and he's happy to come to the university and we're able to help. I have other case studies, but I think I'm out of time. So my suggestion is, feel free to ask questions now, but I'll be walking around, I'll stay in this room for a while, but I've been walking around, and anybody wants to talk to me, just grab me and have a conversation. Thank you.